Hello everyone! Thank you for visiting our channel. Have you ever experienced such like stories? Emily and James got married a year and a half ago. James was considerably older than his wife, who had recently graduated from university. Essentially, he took her to live with him right after she left her parents' home. She worked for 2 years and then resigned almost immediately after the wedding, claiming that her job was too stressful and her boss had become completely unreasonable. She decided to take a couple of weeks off and then look for a new job. During this time, she met with friends, went to group fitness classes several times a week, and spent the rest of her time at home watching movies and reading. One day, James was at work, poring over documents, when he was interrupted by a phone call. It was an unfamiliar number, but he thought it might be a new client. However, from the very first words of the caller, he realized it was a representative from his internet provider calling again. Once again, they were offering him an additional service: video surveillance. James was taken aback. After all, it was about the safety of their property and their household members. During the summer, burglaries had become more frequent. James pondered the idea. And indeed, not long ago, their neighbors had been robbed, and they could not find the thief for a long time, and then could not retrieve their belongings because they were quickly sold. It is hard to say whether it was out of fear or because he was fed up with the persistent offer, but James agreed to the installation. He just decided not to tell his wife about it. He did not want her to worry unnecessarily. He thought it was more of a precautionary measure. Most likely, he wouldn't see anything other than his cat's crazy runs on the camera. But unfortunately, he was greatly mistaken. About a month passed. Emily still did not rush to look for a job. In fact, she enjoyed the feeling of freedom. Her husband did not blame her for not having gone to any interviews yet. He said that she should do it when she feels ready. Once, in the middle of a workday, a man opened his portfolio to find a flash drive for work, but unexpectedly found that it was not there, although he clearly remembered holding it in his hand that morning at home. He became worried that he might have lost it somewhere along the way. But before panicking, he needed to check if he had dropped it at home. He decided not to call his wife because she wasn't going anywhere that day and might have been sleeping. When she quit her job, her body apparently needed to replenish its energy, and she often felt sleepy after lunch. Well, the cameras will come in handy, he thought, weakly smirking. He turned on the app on his phone and started rewinding the morning recording. Here he is leaving the kitchen, taking the flash drive from the shelf in the living room, then going to the hallway and placing the drive on the nightstand before putting on his shoes in a rush and leaving for work. Now everything was clear, and the man even breathed a sigh of relief, but then he noticed something strange in the recording. As soon as he left, his wife returned to the kitchen and began looking out the window with some impatience. She was clearly making sure that her husband had left. Then she headed to the dressing table and began to apply makeup. Where was she going? The husband thought in surprise. He put the recording on fast forward. His wife started to choose a dress, and after an hour and a half, she left somewhere. Maybe she decided to go to the grocery store or shopping, the man thought. He turned on the real-time recording, but his wife wasn't in the apartment. That is, she hadn't been home for about 6 hours. He called her. She only answered on the second try. "Hey, sweetie, I went for a little walk. I was getting tired of sitting at home," she replied. "Are you in our park?" her husband asked, listening carefully. "Yes, I am," she said. "Do you have anything urgent? Let's talk tonight, maybe?" "I met a friend here." Her husband said there was nothing urgent, and they hung up. It didn't seem like she was in nature because the background noise sounded like she was in her room. According to the cameras, she only returned home an hour later. That evening, the couple sat down to eat dinner, and the husband asked how her walk went. "You know, I had lunch and then felt like taking a walk. They say it's a good way to avoid gaining weight. In the end, I walked for an hour or an hour and a half, and I ran into an old classmate," she answered. The husband watched her closely. She was lying so skillfully because according to the cameras, she left much earlier in the morning. He didn't know why she felt the need to lie. Was she hiding something? The next day, the husband searched the internet for a small tracking device that he could discreetly place in his wife's purse and track where she was going. Finding what he was looking for, He placed the device in Emily's purse that evening. It was just in time because, according to his wife, she wasn't going anywhere the next day. This was an excellent opportunity to test her. The next morning, the husband was at work checking Emily's location. This time, she left the house not as early as usual, but only by noon. The husband carefully observed her movements. When she finally stopped somewhere, he left work early and went to that place. When he arrived at the destination, he was surprised to find that it was a branch of the gym chain where his wife worked out. However, she went to a gym that was closer to their home, and this one was located in a completely different direction. The husband saw his wife sitting near the reception desk, waiting for someone or maybe something. While the husband was considering the possibilities of why his wife was there, a young man with a gym bag came out of the locker room. Emily saw him, quickly stood up, and ran to him. The man said something to the administrator, and it seemed that he worked as a trainer at that gym. They exchanged a few words with the wife, then left the building. At that moment, they were holding hands. Then they walked somewhere on the street, and James switched his phone to camera mode and continued to watch them. Finally, they came to a residential building and headed towards one of the entrances. When the trainer opened the door, letting Emily inside, he slapped her on the buttocks. She and the man laughed, and they disappeared behind the door. James had no desire to have any contact with his wife, let alone start any fights. He went home, packed all her belongings, and took her to her parents' house. Without any additional words, he showed them the recorded video, which even made his mother-in-law gasp. There was no chance for his wife to return to him. When she started calling him to figure out what had suddenly happened, her husband didn't pick up the phone. And soon after, her parents called her, so all the questions disappeared. As it turned out, this trainer had substituted for his colleague in the gym near their house several times. There they met Emily and started dating outside of workouts. Emily was still too young and foolish to understand that there were many like her with the trainer, so she was very upset with him when he refused to live with her after breaking up with her husband. She thought their relationship was special, but James immediately realized that the trainer had a good position, so he reported his unprofessional behavior to the management. It turned out that this was not the first complaint about the trainer from the husband of his subordinate, so it was decided to fire the employee who created such uncomfortable situations for the company. Emily continued to live with her parents and had to look for a new job much more actively. Her mother and father were not particularly pleased that their adult daughter had again become dependent on them, especially after such a tumultuous departure from her husband's apartment. At the same time, she continued to go on dates and look for someone who could take care of her like James did. But she mainly encountered immature men who were only interested in her physique. After several months of such unsuccessful meetings, Emily really realized what a good person she had lost. But there was no turning back for her. James was building his life, and he would not let the traitor back into it. What do you think about this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. And thank you for listening to the story until the end. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and be sure to like this video, as it will help us promote the channel. All the best.